The taste of the wine turned bitter in my mouth the moment Richard Ashford began to speak. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of polished cruelty that didn't need volume to cut deep. "Let's be realistic. Daniel?" he said, not even bothering to look in my direction. My boyfriend stiffened beside me. "We don't bring strays into this house." Richard swirled his glass slowly, watching the liquid instead of the people around him. "We might feed them out back. That's charity. But we don't offer them a seat at the table. It confuses the bloodline." The air vanished. 20 guests, politicians, executives, heirs to generational wealth, froze mid-motion. Forks hovered inches from plates. Conversations died instantly. Every pair of eyes shifted between the billionaire patriarch and me, the woman in the simple black dress, the one who didn't belong. If you're wondering why I was called worthless, but nobody expected me to buy his entire empire, then hit the like button. I'm also curious about where you live. What's the temperature there right now? Let me know. Now, let's continue. I felt my fingers tighten under the tablecloth, nails pressing into my palm just to keep them from trembling. The room suddenly felt too bright, too quiet, too aware. "Dad!" Daniel whispered, his voice strained. "Don't! Don't!" What Richard finally turned his head, his gaze settling on me like ice. "Don't state the obvious." A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You're infatuated. It happens. Men go through phases experimenting with women from different backgrounds." He paused, letting the silence stretch just enough to humiliate. "But you don't bring them here. Not to a table where the cutlery costs more than her entire upbringing." A soft ripple of discomfort moved through the room, but no one spoke. Richard leaned back slightly. "Studying me. Look at her," he added quietly. "She knows she doesn't belong. They always do. My name is Gloria Dean." And in that moment, sitting beneath a chandelier that could fund a startup, I understood something with perfect clarity. He thought I was nothing. He was wrong. This story is fictional, with some elements enhanced by AI to make it more engaging and to highlight deeper, meaningful lessons. Take a moment to feel the story, reflect on it, don't forget to share your thoughts, and let's see what happens next. For a moment, no one moved. The silence pressed in from every direction, thick and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were waiting to see what I would do next. Glasses remained suspended midair. No one dared to sip, to speak, to even breathe too loudly. This wasn't just awkward, it was deliberate. A public dismantling, dressed in etiquette. "Dad!" Daniel's voice came out strained, almost fragile. "That's enough." Richard didn't even acknowledge him at first. He took a slow sip of his drink, then set the glass down with precise control, like a man who had delivered a verdict and expected it to stand. "I'm trying to help you," he said calmly, still not looking at me. "You're making decisions based on emotion, not judgment." "I'm not," Daniel started, but the words collapsed under the weight of his father's presence. That was the moment I understood. He wasn't going to defend me. Not really. Not in a way that mattered. I felt something inside me settle, like a storm that had finally found its center. The embarrassment didn't disappear, but it hardened into something else, something sharper, colder, controlled, slowly. I reached for my napkin and placed it beside my untouched plate. The fabric made a soft sound against the table, but in that silence, it might as well have been thunder. "Thank you for the dinner, Mr. Ashford," I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. Richard finally turned his head, just slightly, as if mildly curious that I could still speak. "And thank you," I continued, meeting his gaze fully now, "for showing everyone exactly who you are." A ripple went through the room. Not loud, but enough. His expression shifted, just for a fraction of a second. Not shock, not guilt. Something closer to irritation. I pushed my chair back and stood up, No one tried to stop me, not the guests, not the staff, and not Daniel. I walked the length of that table with steady steps, aware of every pair of eyes following me, measuring me, reassessing everything they thought they knew. By the time I reached the doors, the silence had changed. It wasn't control anymore. It was disbelief. The cold night air hit my face the moment I stepped outside, sharp enough to cut through the tension still clinging to my skin. The mansion behind me glowed with golden light, untouched, as if nothing had happened inside. As if I hadn't just been stripped down to nothing in front of a room full of people who chose silence over decency. I kept walking. Gravel crunched beneath my heels. Steady. Controlled. I wasn't going to run. I refused to give that moment any more power than it already had. Gloria! Wait. Daniel's voice broke through the quiet as footsteps rushed behind me. He caught up quickly, slightly out of breath. His tie loosened, his expression filled with something that almost looked like guilt. Gloria, I'm so sorry, he said, reaching for my arm. I didn't know he would go that far. I swear, I didn't. I gently pulled my arm away before he could finish. I know, I said quietly. And I did. That was the problem. He wasn't surprised enough. He wasn't outraged enough. He was used to it. He's under a lot of pressure. Daniel continued, his voice shaky. The company, the merger, everything. He didn't mean it like that. I'll talk to him. I'll fix this. I looked at him then. Really looked. This was the man I thought I could build a future with. But standing there, under the dim lights of his family's estate, all I saw was hesitation, a lifetime of conditioning wrapped in politeness and fear. You can't fix that, I said softly. Gloria, no. I shook my head. He didn't just insult me. Daniel, he told you exactly who he is. And you sat there. I was in shock. He said quickly, I was in it. I replied, there's a difference. The words hung between us, heavier than anything said at that table. I turned toward my car. The contrast almost laughable, my modest sedan parked between machines worth more than most people's homes. I need time, I said, opening the door. Don't follow me. Don't let him ruin this, Daniel pleaded. Don't let him win. I paused for just a second, then looked back at the mansion towering behind him. He doesn't get to win anything, I said calmly. Not anymore. Then I got in, closed the door, and drove away, leaving behind more than just a dinner. The road stretched out ahead of me, dark and endless, illuminated only by the steady beam of my headlights. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as the adrenaline began to settle, leaving behind something quieter, more dangerous. Clarity. My phone buzzed against the console. I let it ring once, twice. Then I picked it up, already knowing who it would be. Gloria Sarah's voice came through, sharp, alert. My assistant never called this late unless it mattered. I know you're at the Ashford dinner, but the legal team just sent an update. They want to move the signing forward, Monday morning. I let out a slow breath, eyes fixed on the empty highway. They're pushing hard, I asked. Very. Ashford Energy is accelerating everything. Their people say they can't afford delays anymore. Of course they couldn't. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, the engine still running, the ocean somewhere out in the darkness beyond the trees. For a moment, I just sat there, letting the irony settle in. Richard Ashford, the man who had just called me trash in front of his entire world. The same man whose company was quietly bleeding out, desperate for a deal that would keep them alive. A deal with my company. My name is Gloria Dean, I said softly, more to myself than to Sarah, founder and majority shareholder of Helixera Biotech. There was a brief pause on the line. Sarah knew who I was. She just didn't know what had happened tonight. Ashford Energy had spent months chasing Helixera. Their analysts praised our patents. Their board pushed for the merger. Their future depended on access to what we had built. What Richard didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman he dismissed as worthless was the one holding the pen on that deal? Gloria Sarah asked carefully. Do you want me to confirm Monday? I looked out into the darkness. A slow, cold decision forming. No, I said quietly. Don't confirm anything yet. Because everything had just changed. The decision didn't feel impulsive. It felt inevitable. I leaned back in my seat, staring out into the darkness as the weight of everything settled into place. Not anger, not revenge, just alignment, cause and effect, finally catching up with arrogance. Sarah, I said calmly, my voice steady again. Yes, terminate the deal. Silence, not confusion, not static, just pure. Stunned silence. I'm sorry, she said after a second, her tone carefully controlled. Did you say, terminate the agreement with Ashford Energy? I did, I replied. Cancel the signing. Withdraw the letter of intent. Notify legal that we're pulling out effective immediately. Gloria, this is a $4 billion merger, she said quietly. The termination clause alone, I don't care about the penalty. The words came out colder than I expected. Wire the fee, tonight. If possible, I want everything clean and finalized before the market opens. Sarah exhaled slowly on the other end. She understood what that meant, not just financially, but strategically. Ashford Energy wasn't just another partner. They were desperate. Do you want a reason included in the notice, she asked? Yes. I said, be very clear. I paused, letting the words form with precision. State that Helixera Biotech is withdrawing due to incompatible values and concerns regarding leadership integrity. Another pause. He's going to see that personally. Sarah said, I know. I replied. That was the point. And Sarah, yes, prepare a statement for Monday morning and reach out to Novaris Group. Set up a meeting. There was a shift in her tone now. Recognition, momentum. A competitor acquisition, she asked. Exactly. If Ashford Energy couldn't survive without us, then I would simply align with the company that could replace them. Understood, she said. I ended the call and sat there for a moment longer, the engine humming quietly beneath me. Richard Ashford thought power came from legacy. Tonight, he was about to learn what it felt like to lose it. If you think what I just did, walking away from a $4 billion deal and pulling the plug on his entire safety net was too harsh, comment I don't support. But if you believe I'm standing up for something bigger than money, then comment I support. I need to know. Are you with me? I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window of my penthouse, watching the city lights fade into the pale gray of early morning. The coffee in my hand had long gone cold, but I didn't notice. I was waiting. At exactly 7:02 a.m., my phone lit up, one call, then 3, then 8. Daniel. Unknown numbers. Legal teams. And finally, a name that made me pause for just a fraction of a second. Richard Ashford. I let it ring. By 7:30, the financial alerts started flooding in. Headlines moved faster than I expected. Helixera Biotech withdraws from Ashford Energy deal. Ashford Energy stock plummets pre-market. Investor confidence shaken amid sudden collapse. I stood up slowly, walking closer to the glass as the city came alive beneath me. This was the part most people never saw. Not the confrontation, not the words, the consequences. At 8:15, my intercom buzzed. Miss Dean! Sarah's voice came through, composed but tighter than usual. There's someone in the lobby. He's insisting on seeing you. I didn't need to ask who. He's not taking no for an answer, she added. I allowed myself a small, humorless smile. Let me guess, I said. Expensive suit, red face. Looks like he hasn't slept. A brief pause. That would be accurate. Of course it was. Richard Ashford wasn't used to losing control. Not in boardrooms, not in negotiations, and certainly not because of someone he had dismissed the night before. He says it's urgent. Sarah continued. He keeps repeating that he needs to speak to the person in charge of Helixera. I walked over to my desk, setting the untouched coffee aside. Send him up, I said calmly. Put him in the glass conference room. The one with no blinds. The one where the morning sun hit directly at eye level. And Sarah, yes, make him wait. 30 minutes later. I stepped out of my office and walked down the hallway toward the conference room. I didn't bring a laptop. I didn't bring legal documents. And I certainly didn't bring a lawyer. I didn't need any of that. The glass doors were slightly ajar when I arrived. Inside. Richard Ashford paced back and forth, his movements sharp, restless. He looked different from the man at the dinner table. The confidence was still there, but thinner now, strained. His tie was loosened, his hair no longer perfectly in place. Pressure had already started doing its work. I pushed the door open. He turned immediately, irritation flashing across his face until he saw me. For a split second, confusion replaced it. You, he said, frowning. What are you doing here? I didn't answer. I walked past him without hesitation, my heels echoing softly against the polished floor. Around the table, past the chairs, straight to the head seat, the one reserved for the person in charge. Then I sat down. Slowly, deliberately, I crossed my legs and rested my hands lightly on the table, as if this was exactly where I had always belonged. Please, I said calmly, gesturing to the chair across from me. Have a seat, Mr. Ashford. He didn't move. His eyes shifted from me, to the empty room, to the logo behind me on the glass wall, Helixera Biotech, then back to me. The realization didn't hit him all at once. It crept in, a tightening of the jaw, a flicker in the eyes, a sudden stillness, like the ground beneath him had just shifted. No, he said quietly. That's not possible. I leaned forward slightly, meeting his gaze. You ran your background checks, I said. You saw everything you wanted to see. I let the silence stretch just long enough, but you never bothered to look at what actually mattered. Richard didn't sit down, not at first. He just stared at me, as if refusing to let the reality settle. His eyes moved again my face, the chair I was sitting in, the Helixera logo behind me, trying to find the flaw in what he was seeing. You're the owner, he finally said. His voice lower now, uncertain. Founder, I corrected calmly. Majority shareholder, and the one who just walked away from your deal. That landed. I watched it happen in real time, the shift from disbelief to calculation, from arrogance to something much closer to fear. Miss Dean, he said, adjusting his tone instantly, as if the dinner had never happened. There's been a misunderstanding. I held his gaze. Was it a misunderstanding when you called me trash, I asked. He flinched, barely. But it was there. That was a private setting, he said quickly. Personal matters shouldn't interfere with business. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar partnership. No, I said, my voice cutting through his. You're talking about survival. Silence. I leaned back slightly, letting the weight of that word settle between us. Helixera isn't just another company on your list. I continued. We are the only reason your board approved that merger. Your patents are outdated. Your energy division is bleeding capital. You needed us to pivot into biotech. He said nothing, because he knew I was right. You built your empire on legacy, I went on names, status, and who gets to sit at your table. I paused. My company is built on something else entirely, results. I leaned forward again, just enough to close the distance between us. So let me be very clear. Mr. Ashford. His jaw tightened. There is no partnership anymore. A beat. I'm not here to merge with your company. Another. I'm here to acquire it. This time. He sat down. Richard's composure cracked the moment he sat down. It wasn't dramatic, not loud, but I saw it in the way his fingers tightened against the armrest. In the slight delay before he spoke again, You can't be serious, he said, forcing a thin smile. An acquisition? That's not how this works. It is now, I replied. He leaned forward, voice lowering. Urgency creeping in. Gloria, listen to me. We can renegotiate. Whatever terms you want, equity, control, board influence, we'll make it happen. I didn't interrupt him. I let him talk. Because this was the first time in his life. He was the one asking. Name your price. He added quickly. I'll personally guarantee it. I tilted my head slightly, studying him. You still think this is about money? A pause. It's about control, he corrected. No, I said calmly. It's about consequences. The room went still again. I reached for my phone on the table, glancing briefly at the screen before setting it back down. A small, deliberate gesture. That, I said, was Navarre's group. They're very interested in what we discussed last night. His face drained of color. You wouldn't. He said, I would? I replied. And if I do? They won't acquire you. They'll crush you, slowly, publicly. Silence. He swallowed hard, the confidence from the dinner completely gone now. What do you want? He asked quietly. Finally, I stood up from my chair and walked around the table, stopping just close enough that he had to look up at me. I want the company, I said. Not a merger, not a partnership, a full acquisition. He nodded quickly. Fine, we can structure that. I shook my head. There's one condition. His expression tightened. Anything, he said. I held his gaze. You resign, immediately. He froze. No severance, no golden parachute, no advisory role. You walk away with nothing but your name. His lips parted, but no words came out. I didn't look away. Or, I added quietly, by tomorrow morning, your company won't be worth saving. He didn't answer right away. Richard Ashford sat there, staring at the table as if the answer might appear in the grain of the wood. The man who had humiliated me less than 24 hours ago now looked smaller, diminished, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. You're asking me to walk away from everything I built, he said hoarsely. No, I replied calmly. You did that last night. Silence stretched between us, heavy and final. An hour later, he signed. By noon, the board announced his resignation. By early afternoon, Helixera Biotech officially acquired Ashford Energy. The market stabilized almost instantly, as if the company had been waiting for someone else to take control all along. I watched it unfold from my office, the city moving below me like nothing had changed, but everything had. When I stepped back inside later, Daniel was there, sitting quietly, his hands clasped together. He looked up as I entered, eyes tired but clear. I heard, he said. I nodded. He took a breath. I resigned this morning. Before the announcement. That surprised me. I can't be part of that world anymore, he continued. Not after what I saw, not after what he did. There was no hesitation in his voice this time. Only certainty. I studied him for a moment, then allowed myself a small smile. Good, I said softly, because I'm building something better. By the end of the day, the headlines were everywhere. The woman they called trash now owned the table. And this time, she decided who stayed. I didn't walk away from that dinner with anger. I walked away with clarity. And looking back now, there are 3 lessons that changed everything for me. First, never let someone else define your worth. The moment you accept their version of you, you lose your own, that night. I realized silence can either protect your dignity or erase it. I chose to protect mine. Second, power is not what people say you are. It's what you build when no one is watching. Titles, family names, and status can disappear overnight. But skills, resilience, and vision, those are things no one can take from you. Third, respect is non-negotiable. Not in business, not in relationships, not in life. The moment you tolerate disrespect, you give permission for it to continue. Walking away isn't weakness, it's often the strongest move you can make. Now, I want to ask you, which of these lessons stayed with you the most? Was it knowing your worth, building your own power, or refusing to accept disrespect? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them, and your perspective matters more than you think. If this story gave you something to think about, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because this isn't just my story anymore, it's a mindset we're building together.
Welcome to Boardroom Revenge Stories, a channel focused on workplace conflict, corporate betrayal, power struggles, and quiet justice. Our stories follow a structured workflow to deliver a consistent, immersive experience. We start by analyzing real discussions on Reddit, Facebook, Quora, and blogs. Next, we craft original scripts using AI tools like ChatGPT. We then use 11 Labs to transform text into high-quality voice and edit everything in CapCut for a smooth, cinematic finish. Thumbnails are designed with Canva, and every video is carefully reviewed before release. These stories go beyond entertainment, revealing how power truly works and how justice quietly unfolds.